So today I think we're going to go ahead and tackle trimming off the bumper supports. This is a pretty common modification in the ZJ world, but there's not a whole lot of information about it. So we're just going to get really in depth, and we're going to take care of all those questions that myself and a lot of other people have had about doing this modification.
Alright, so the tools you're going to need to do this modification are a sawzall with a good metal blade, a tape measure, a nice strong marker that's going to show up well, a grinding wheel, angle grinder with a good cutoff wheel.
In a previous video I removed the headlights and the grill, so I'm not going to do that in this video. I'll go ahead and link that in the description. You can watch that as well.
Alright, now that the grill's out of the way, we're going to go ahead and remove the three 10mm bolts holding the airbag sensors on. Alright, once the airbag sensors are removed from both sides, you're going to take a 13mm socket and remove your horns. While you're down here, you need to go ahead and clip that zip tie and start fishing this harness back through. Alright, the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trim the excess inner fender well off. We're not going to need it when this is all done, and it's in the way of getting to the next couple bolts. You want to take your marker and just kind of give yourself a rough idea of where you want to cut. Looks good to me. Alright, and remember to keep your old cut piece as a template for your other side. Alright, so I went ahead and pre-lubricated these with WD-40. What you're going to do now is take a 15mm socket to the back side of these. These are tack welded in place, so you won't be able to get it from the front. And when you're done with that, you're going to repeat that on the other side. Now you're going to want to go ahead and take your 11mm deep well socket and start removing this charcoal canister. So there will be 3 different nuts you need to remove. One where I'm at now, one in this location, as well as one back here. Alright, so you may think that these are just spinning in place and it's not doing anything. The way that these work is they're threaded into there, so while you're turning this, whichever one's weaker, in this case the plastic doesn't have corrosion, so instead of this nut fighting the rust, it's just going to thread itself out of there, and that's perfectly normal. If you need to, you can go ahead and put vice grips on the bottom of these and break these free. I'm not going to be reusing these, so I'm just going to RTV these holes shut before relocating it. This is the bottom side of it. What you need to do is get your same 15mm, give it a good yank, break it free, and once you've almost got it out, make sure you've got a good hand on it. You don't want that heavy piece of metal hitting you in the face. Also, guys, I think it's pretty good common practice don't throw these bolts away. You never know when you're going to need them again. I've got a little bucket. I just toss these nuts and bolts in when I'm done with them, and I come back for them later. Alright, now that bar's out of the way, and you should have a pretty good shot at cutting now. Alright, here comes the fun part. Now anywhere you're going to be riding, go ahead and clean it up just so you don't prematurely ruin your marker. Take your marker, and you're going to want to cut right down this seam. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect this time, that's why we've got that grinding wheel ready. Now once again, go ahead and take a rag, wipe all this clean. There's no reason to ruin a perfectly good marker. We're going to take and cut that line. Lift those up out of the way. Clean this off pretty good. And we may be cutting more out, but this is what we know we want to take. Take your marker, cut that line. You're going to be cutting that line. That's just going to give us ability to get in here and cut at different angles. Now I want to keep a portion of this bracket, even though mine's bent. I'm going to hammer it back up into place. So let's go ahead and cut. Let's get the marker working. Let's just eyeball a 1/4 inch. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to grind it a whole bunch later. Reason being, your fender bolts to this piece, so you need to keep that. And if you have to, after we bang it back up, you can fold that 1/4 inch over on itself, so it's not going to just be hanging down loose. Don't cut this. What you're going to do is you're going to straighten this one out as well. And definitely don't cut this. This is what holds part of your grill on, your grill and headlight assembly. Now make sure you got a good pair of glasses on, as well as some gloves. It's important to protect your hands and your eyes. Let's go ahead and take that Sharpie and start marking it up again. So I know I want to cut right here. I also know that I don't want to cut too much out of here. So right here is where this line, if you reach up in here, that seems to be a good spot. So I'm going to cut right along there. And that's going to line up perfectly with over here. Let's continue this line out. rough shape cut out. I'm going to go ahead and repeat this on the other side, and then come back and get to grinding. Alright, so one thing I don't think I showed too well on the other side is if you grab a pair of channel locks and grab that, you'll be able to straighten it up. So there's no need to cut that. And then you're going to want to take a T30 Torx bit. Go ahead and back that out after you've bent it. That way the holes stay lined up. Now set that off to the side. Alright, so next you're going to take your cutoff wheel, get rid of any of these really sharp angles, and then you're going to grab your grinding wheel and just start grinding this down, making it dull, making it look better. Alright, I wanted to show you where I relocated my charcoal canister to. But first, what you're going to want to do is get some RTV and fill these holes in. And you won't be using those anymore. So you're going to have to kind of cram these wires to the side, but you'll be able to force that down in there. Just be careful you don't rip any wires out. And I chose to kind of cock mine off at an angle. I took the factory hose, flipped the grommet around, trimmed the elbow off of it, and then came here and then trimmed that elbow off of the rubber piece. For this one that's coming off the manifold, you follow it. I'm going up there, so that's where it is on the manifold. When it comes out, you just, instead of running it out that way, you flip it over at that elbow and you reverse it. So now it's coming this way, and it comes up through an elbow. Now the one that comes off the gas tank, I just trimmed it right there and flipped that old grommet onto it. Here's the horns. This is the battery box. If you take the 10mm bolts out that are in there, and you're going to have to kind of trim the, I can't really tell you how to do it, you're just going to have to pull out the bracket and keep putting it in until you have enough clearance to make it fit. And when it's all done, it should sit nicely right there. My battery's a little bit smaller, but even if it wasn't, these will push over out of the way. I mean, these metal brackets can be bent. I just didn't bother bending mine because my battery doesn't take up the whole box. As for your airbag sensors, I really haven't found a good spot to relocate those yet. So I'll be checking on forums, and as soon as I find a good spot to put them, I'll upload a video. Now the only thing this is going to mean is there's going to be a loose wire hanging in there, and you're going to have a light on your dashboard. If you're like me and you really don't want lights on your dashboard, I mean, this is a vehicle I take my kids in every day, and I just don't want it to look crappy. What you can do is pull the dash out and remove the light. Would be just about your only option if you want to remove the airbag sensors. Now, if you're like me and you want to have the airbag sensors and you don't want to get in there and remove lights, and you want it to work the way it's supposed to work, if you just stay tuned, I'll try to in the next video or two make a video showing you where to relocate them. I'll do some digging. There was a couple potential spots I had. One was underneath the battery box for the passenger side one, and it's just really tight, and I can show you that. And what's going to happen is it's going to come out that hole. You'd have to drill all new holes for it. It'll come out that hole, but then you're going to have wires hanging down here, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose of what we've done here if we have wires hanging out. I was looking in this piece of the fender, but then same thing, wires hanging out. I mean, there's just really not a good spot for them. And you're limited to where you can go by the length of the wiring harness as well. So we may wind up extending the harness for them, and I'll show you guys how to do that. And maybe potentially finding a better place. Being this is an off-road rig, I probably want them back a little bit further anyway, so if I can get them closer to the firewall, I would like to. Alright, so one of the things you need to remember is if you don't want to melt these out when you're welding, go ahead and remove them. They're plastic push pins, they just pop right out. Some tips would be take a C-clamp, pull that down, and then kind of beat that into place, tack that, and then take a hammer, beat that over tight, run a couple tacks down, and then weld it in the rest of the way. and then same thing down here. Kind of tap it up and weld it in. For me, this was a little bit harder because I'd cut away a little bit too much material, but shouldn't be an issue for you. Alright, now you're going to want to kind of grind all that off. I'm going to go back and paint it at a later date. So this is kind of what it should look like when you're done. You've got your plastic grill mount is at about the same level as this. You're going to be welded up over here. Same thing on the other side. You're going to find the new home for your horns right here. You're going to find your charcoal canister over here with all your new routing. And when you step back, you're going to have one good looking Jeep. I want to thank you guys for watching this upload. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Slipper's Garage. Over there you're going to get a lot of behind the scenes pictures, footage, and you know when I'm going to release a video. I wanted to thank you guys for watching this video, and please subscribe, leave a comment, and hit the like button.